Hi, everyone. This is Sarah Whitaker.
And Salty Dulty.
Ew. Here,
I know I'm me.
Here for episode 10, The Forbidden Door and Crossovers. This will be our final episode using the Iowa Western Recording Studio as we make a special longer episode to tickle your fancies. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube at Lady Morgue 0240. So...
Oh my. The door is open.
Yes, you have opened the forbidden door.
And now I'm walking in.
Good, because, we don't want anyone walking in on us now, do we?
Yeah. It wouldn't be the first time it's happened.
But we're not going to go into that.
Does it count if it's an animal? Never mind.
All right, so how was our Thanksgiving?
I think I would like to be able to steal a word from the late, great Ole Anderson. It was the shits.
It was the shit. Well, I mean, Golden Corral wasn't too bad, though.
It was just that they didn't have my damn fudge like I wanted.
Aww.
Other than that, the meal was great.
They did have banana pudding. They had...
They had bread pudding.
They had bread pudding, too.
And they also had pumpkin pie and a little bit of the steak with the steak sauce, a little bit of the salad with the Caesar dressing. They had a little bit of the soup. They had a little bit of the this, a little bit of the that, yada yada, blah blah blah, rat tat tat, as Ronnie Garvin would say.
Well, the weather was kind of sucky, and
Are you kidding me? It was so cold that a witch would be holding her tits, all right? That explains what that chick with the pentacle tattoo was doing. Never mind.
Alrighty, let's see. Yeah, pretty much bad weather. It hasn't been, snowing to the point of sticking to the ground, but...
And also missing Mumsy, too.
Yeah, missing Mumsy.
Yeah, I know. Well, let's go ahead and turn this podcast into a therapy session.
Well,
retail therapy.
Well, it's the holiday season. People get depressed during the holiday season. It's nice to know that they aren't alone in feeling kind of crappy this time of year.
Yeah. Especially when they have to deal with toxic family.
Yeah, we're not going into that, as I said again, but...
Not unless we both have a glass of wine in front of us, so we can whine about it.
Alrighty. Well... In light of that, let's go into the jargon of the day. We're going really back into old school terminology.
This one here, the first one I think we got down, is actually kind of gone the way of the dodo bird.
It's called bicycling.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's trading tapes between territories.
Yep. Yeah, that would happen a lot during the 60s and early 70s, especially down in Florida. They would often play that with Gordon Sully doing commentary on it, but first tape that comes to mind is the tape up in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, when, it was Toronto. Yeah, Toronto, Canada, back in 1977. Harley Race being Terry Funk for his second run as NWA champion. They played that at every single territory, because Harley was going to come into every territory and work with their top guy for at least one show or so. So they wanted to be able to show that on local TV as an advertising point for the future. And God knows how many years Harley, I think he had it for 3 years off and on, the world title during that run. But yeah, man, that was a way of advertising him before he even came to town, landing him credibility.
And, we're going to go into the history of cross promotion and whatnot, but just a taste, because it's there have even been terms for this sort of thing even before Vince took over, but we'll get into that later.
Oh yeah.
The next jargon of the day is rub, loaning credibility from one wrestler or promotion to another.
Yep. Basically, that was done a lot of times in a tag team to where a veteran wrestler who'd been around for a while and was over would team up with a young rookie and be able to loan him some of his credibility and kind of give him his stamp of approval, say, hey, this kid's all right, he's going to be a star someday. Kind of like, for example, who'd be the best, well, by golly, I think the best example that given somebody the rub would actually be Bruno Sammartino and Larry Zbyszko back in the WWF in the late 70s before they actually feuded with one another and made, box office boohoo money for the time for the territory system for WWF. Or it was WWF in them days.
So they worked as a tag team so that...
Off and on, yeah.
Off and on, so that Larry would be able to get more credibility and so that they could have the...
And also, Larry was legitimately trained to wrestle by Bruno, and that's the only... Other than Bruno's son, David, that was the only wrestler Bruno Sammartino ever trained, to my knowledge.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, this is going to be a longer episode because we have a lot to cover because...
Yes, I get my 5 more minutes.
You get your 5 more minutes, and you get 15 more minutes.
Okay. Hey, don't get cocky here. I'm going to blow up. 5 minutes I can handle. 15, I don't know. I'm going to probably have to put on a couple working olds.
Alrighty.
And just sit in them.
Well, we have a lot of topics to go through before that happens, and so we'll have at least something new for you to deal with, okay?
Oh, yeah. Or bitch about.
Okay, the history of cross-promoting before Vince shows up.
Every promotion was cross-promoting here in America. Because in 1946 or 47, I think it was 47... the National Wrestling Alliance came to be officially in Waterloo, Iowa, with every single promotion and every single territory around the country combining together as one national federation, recognizing one world champion and agreeing to help each other out whenever they needed new talent, new television ideas, finishes, whatnot. It's like if they even need somebody to come in, book for a while in their territory, they did every promotion in this country cross-promoted during the territory days. That's how it was designed.
Except the outlaw promotions.
Yeah, the ones that were not officially a part of the National Wrestling Alliance and, paid their... Basically, it was kind of like the equivalent to being in a, by golly, almost like being in a union. It's like that was their way of putting together like this giant, mafia family of, you have the, you have Sam Giancana in Chicago, you have Sammy the Bull Gravano in New York, you have all these different families, same with the promotions. So agreeing to help each other out, make sure that, they keep the business on a down low, making sure that they talk with each other. It's like, hey, this guy here in this territory, he's trouble, run him out, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that's how it was orchestrated as, was every promotion helping each other out and, agreeing to trade talent because they're all part of one more, giant umbrella operation.
Now, did Japan, you mentioned while we were talking that Japan did something
Japan
similar.
was part of the NWA too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, All Japan Pro Wrestling was part of the NWA because the Funks would go and actually train people there from Japan and Amarillo. So it was they were All Japan Pro Wrestling was part of the National Wrestling Alliance, and they would always give Giant Baba his yearly present of giving him a week-long reign for the NWA title in the late 70s. Which, hey, Harley Race was more than happy to do that for his buddy, so...
So how long did this last? I mean, it's like when did Vince really start taking power to where
1983, 84, around that time. Between 83 and 84, he really went full bore in 84 when he really, especially when Black Saturday happened in Atlanta that we mentioned on one of the previous episodes. Actually, I think the previous episode.
Yes.
But they had about a 40-year run doing the business this way until Vince goes to every single territory, buys out their television time, and tries to entice every single top guy in that territory to come and work for him, and they all get one shot at Hogan, and they put Hogan over and they go somewhere else on the card. So that's kind of Vince's master plan during the 80s and all that, and hey, his company's still in business today.
Well, not under his reign, but...
Yeah, but still, Vince himself had a 42-year run, technically.
So the start of the Forbidden Door, as outsiders would call it, would be in about 83, 84?
Yes.
Now, how much of a tightwad Vince was?
This is the way all the promoters were, not just to, shit on Vince, which we enjoy doing sometimes.
Right.
But... all the promoters wanted all the wrestlers under their thumbs and had them be solely dependent on income from wrestling. So they could use them anytime they want, use them for as little as they could pay them for, and also to a point where they could also be able to protect the business as well. Because a lot of times Hollywood producers, all that, might ask, hey, is that wrestling thing? And so it was also as a part of a protection plan for the business, but they wanted the wrestlers to be solely, supported by the wrestling business, especially because they might get enticed to quit the wrestling business and go do something else, kind of like what Rock did with Hollywood, even though he came back to it. It's like he's making, butt F money in Hollywood, and he's, didn't need wrestling anymore, even though he came back because, he was born into it and loved it.
Well, even before The Rock, you have people like Ventura and Hogan who got in trouble for going to Hollywood.
Oh, boy. Yeah, Chris Van Vliet and Jesse Ventura had a nice little talk about that, but Vince Sr. did not want Hogan to go and do that Rocky movie because he thought it'd be killing the wrestling business, kind of like the same way as how he was hesitant to bring Andy Kaufman into WWF at the time, and Lawler ended up getting the sweet end of that deal, and ended up slapping the shit out of Kaufman on Letterman back in '82. So this really started in '82 with the crossover between Hollywood and pro wrestling. So. Really started. It's they had Terry Funk and Paradise Alley with Sylvester Stallone and all that. Of course, Hogan, but what really kicked off was Hogan in Stallone, Thunder Lips in Rocky 3 with Stallone, yeah. And then, of course, Ventura gets Predator with Arnold, which, still a classic to this day. But I was going to say, it's Vince did not want Ventura to take that deal at all.
Well, because, he would get the unionization of SAG and all his unionization attempts in the professional wrestling industry would be kind of moot because then he'd be an actor.
Yep. Well, Vince, he even went and told Vince, you don't need to worry about me talking about union anymore. I already got my union. But Ventura, actually, something that's not talked about, but I remember Ventura talking in passing, Vince actually got him booked on a TV show in a guest star role, and he was supposed to get paid $5,000 for it, and he only got $1,500 because Vince took his cut. Sly, shrewd son of a,
Yeah. But, the kind of lasted a long time, but were there some instances where the Forbidden Door was broken before Chris Jericho?
Well, WWE did at some points have crossovers with New Japan because they had a working relationship where they would do a tour after WrestleMania in 1989, 90, 91, around that era, to where they would, pick one of the companies in Japan and do a tour cross-promoting with them over in Japan. So it's I think it was New Japan for a couple ones they did, but I do know they did one with Baba in 1990 where Hogan wrestled Stan Hansen in Japan. So, but it was kind of like Vince knew that he was probably not going to be able to take over Japan, but it's like, well, if you can't kill Frankenstein, you might as well work with him.
Right.
So, those guys were not going to. Those guys weren't going to be bought out. Vince, he's domesticated anyway in North America, so it's like, hell, might as well just work with them.
So what about like the Mexican promotions and whatnot? I mean, did they have their share of?
Well, I tell you what, that really came to head with Mexico and was WCW. A lot of the guys in Mexico were allowed to go out there and work, in North America above the border in the U.S., and a lot of them would go do WCW TV, like Rey Mysterio was one of those guys, La Parca, Psychosis. And, actually, a side note, Bobby Heenan made a comment one time. It's like, hey, all these guys seem to work very similar. You could save some money and just bring in 2 luchadors and just bring in 10 hoods and have them do 10 different matches with 10 different hoods on each of them. They all kind of work the same. They all kind of, move the same in the ring. So why not do that as a cost-saving measure? It's like, yeah, I can see some Dick the Bruiser rubbing off on Bobby Heenan. Cheapskate, but no, that really and WCW also had a working agreement with New Japan throughout the 90s as well, because that's how they were able to bring in Jushin Liger and some guy, Scott Norton was part of that deal too.
Ultimo Dragon?
Ultimo Dragon was one of them, but he actually came from Mexico because he went back and forth between Japan and Mexico, but I think he got in through Mexico more. Because that's kind of where he made his name, was Mexico with the way he worked. But also, they actually had a whole pay-per-view in WCW. It was Starrcade 95, to where all the WCW guys were working with all the New Japan guys and having like a one-night tournament to see who would win the WCW New Japan Battle Cup. So in WCW ended up winning that when Sting beat Kensuke Sasaki for the cup, and then immediately went into a triple threat match between him, Luger, and Flair to see who's going to wrestle Savage for a world title. And then Flair goes and works Savage for the main event, which is probably the most forgivable match in Starrcade history. But I digress.
Alrighty, so let's go to the. I mean, the most noticeable breaking of the Forbidden Door of the 21st century was when Chris Jericho,
him and Omega. Yeah, for New Japan, and Vince did not want Jericho to do that. Because all these guys have, especially since Vince took over, had non-competes in their contracts. They can't work for any other promotion unless Vince okays it. So, like, Vince would actually, when he was working with Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett in Memphis after the USWA merger with WWF, because Lawler was working with him while still owning his own territory, Vince was actually purposely sending guys into Memphis, like Bret Hart, Randy Savage, and Owen Hart, and I believe even Undertaker, to work with, some of the guys in Memphis, like Jeff Jarrett, who also came in, got a WWF contract. Trying to think. Well, Vince sure as hell wasn't going to hire Dundee, especially with Undertaker there, but we'll digress on why they have heat. But also, kind of the same thing happened with Smoky Mountain, where Vince would, send Shawn Michaels into there, work with Buddy Landel, and Undertaker working with Unabomb. It's like, yeah, I wonder whatever happened to that Unabomb guy in Smoky Mountain. So, I think he might become a dentist or something like that after Smoky Mountain. But I digress on that.
Well, it seemed to be Chris Jericho and Triple H going to that indie company. I mean, seemed to be the one that everybody was focused on.
Yeah, because WWE actually signed a deal with Progress Wrestling kind of as a, I wouldn't say like a developmental, but it's kind of like a cross promotion. It's like, hey, when your guys get done, tell them to come over here WWE with Progress Wrestling over in Europe, because that's kind of how I think the whole NXT UK deal might have gotten started, was through Progress, because they wrestle all around Europe. So kind of their way of putting their foot in, giving guys another option or another promotion to work with in that brand, because they also did that with Evolve Wrestling too, and they got the rights for that.
Alrighty. Now the biggest one of the 21st century is the allowing of TNA wrestlers into WWE after
NXT. Yeah.
So I mean, it's like
I never thought those two would ever be working together. So because. Well, I'm going to go ahead and back up a little bit, too. The whole thing with Japan and, AEW, too. Because I didn't think... Well, I mean, we knew that AEW and Japan were going to work together, which, doesn't surprise me at all, doing the crossover. And they're kind of the ones that coined the phrase Forbidden Door. But that's because, Omega has the connections to Japan as well as the Young Bucks. So you could see that coming from a mile away. But WWE and TNA... I never thought NXT and TNA would actually be, bicycling in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm absolutely shocked, but say his name and he appears. I believe in HBK. Gotta love Sean as the GM for NXT, but... Now, I was going to say, it's like being able to cross-promote these guys and have them be on a WWE stage actually lends credibility to TNA's brand as well, even though they were hot 15 years ago from their generation of talent that they had over there.
Well, didn't they have the TNA Women's Champion go into one of the Royal
Rumbles?
Yes,
Mickie James.
Mickie James, yeah.
Yeah, Mickie James. Well, and she was just fresh off of her WWE run. And the thing that really got me is that they actually played her TNA music instead of her WWE music. They played the Hardcore Country. Anyway, but I think that was when that deal was kind of initially done, and they were testing the water to see how it would get over, and they already knew Mickie, but it's like you see guys like Hammerstone, Joe Hendry, trying to think of who all's over in... Well, I mean, I could easily see Dolph Ziggler coming over and doing something over in NXT too, but, I digress on that. But I tell you, not to get too off topic here, but what about this thing that JBL has going on, going from promotion to promotion to promotion to promotion, and just, coming in there in the duster and the cowboy hat and just clotheslining anybody he wants?
I mean, that's like a multi-promotional gimmick, if you could call it that. I mean, it's I could go into my theory of the professional wrestling multiverse, but that would be another podcast.
Well, because I know that John's definitely interested in doing something in ring again, because he was going through stem cell therapy in his neck for a long, long time, and he says, from what I understand, he's feeling really good right now, and I think he wants to have one last ride, because I don't think he really got to end his career maybe the way he wanted to. So I mean, yeah, he did have that year-long run when he came back and wrestled again, but I think his neck started bugging him again. But yeah, I'm glad that because JBL's money, let's face it. I mean, we know his reputation backstage. We know his reputation, getting knocked out by announcers. But I was gonna say, it's like he was right place, right time, had a good run. They needed a top heel on SmackDown, and I feel like because he injured his neck in 04, 05, somewhere in there, and had worked with that for a year or something, and he had to quit wrestling. That's when he went on commentary, then went back and wrestled for a year, and I think he started having problems again, and then he's just like, hell, I'm done.
Now, what about TNA's policies? I mean, because before AEW was very hot into the indies, and we'll get to AEW in a moment, TNA was bringing out their superstars to the indie promotions and whatnot so that they could work. I mean, we got to meet Jessica Havoc at Revolver.
Yeah, and that's because Sammy also was part of the TNA roster at the time and opened his own indie company on his days off and decided to do that because TNA did not have a non-compete in their deal, but TNA also had to approve each indie date from what I understand. So if there's anybody out there that has more knowledge of it, please correct us. But I think from what I've heard, that was exactly how it went. So, because WWE was very strict on their non-compete deal, but TNA was a lot more, or Impact at the time was a lot more liberal on it's like, yeah, let's go ahead and, because they were primarily just TV based at that time, let the guys go out and get some extra work. So, but ECW was like that too in the original ECW days. With other promotions, they would go out and on their days off occasionally and go do something else. That's why the WWE. Oh, actually, that brings me back to another crossover that doesn't get talked about a lot. ECW and WWF in 1997. Do you remember when,
were they still owned by themselves, or were they owned by WWE at that point?
This was before WWE bought the rights to them. This was 1997, right around the time of the first ECW pay-per-view. With, they would have, the Dudleys come into Raw. They'd have Rob Van Dam come in and do a match on Raw. They'd have Sabu Sandman, those guys. Tommy Dreamer, especially, because he actually was working an angle with Lawler, and Lawler actually went and did a couple matches in ECW wrestling Tommy Dreamer. And one match where he actually came Dreamer nuts in the first instance of Tommy Ball was ever played. Go listen to 6 Feet Under with Mark Calloway, last week's episode with Hornswoggle. You'll see what they're talking about.
Which brings us now to AEW, which got started by a crossover.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean...
Jericho working with Omega is kind of, I think, the seeds that planted for that, because that's what I think led up to that All-In show in 2018 in Chicago, where they sold out in 20 minutes, basically, from what I remember.
Who were the promotions involved in that again?
That was just the Young Bucks and Cody trying their hand at a show before AEW was officially started. So that was unofficially the first AEW show, was All In, where Cody wrestled, I think, Nick, was it Nick Aldis for the NWA title and beat him? Or was it Rob I can't remember who was NWA champion at the time. Might have been either Rob Conway or Nick Aldis, one of those two. And Cody actually wrestled for the NWA title and got it on that show. Then I think he dropped it a little further down the line. But, yeah, I mean, the Young Bucks, that was them trying, it's like, it was on a dare. It's like Meltzer and his dumbass went and said, it's like, nobody besides WWE would be able to go and sell out a, 10,000 seat arena. And they proved him wrong, especially because pro wrestling was starved for something outside of WWE at that time that was not Japan. So,
especially when they made AEW Dark, and then people could see their local wrestlers on an AEW show.
Yep.
What other steps did AEW take in order to bring themselves more access to the independent circuit?
Well, obviously, because everybody involved except for Cody pretty much came from the indies, so they wanted to be able to have a platform for, because Vince, I think at the time, was not hiring indie wrestlers. He only wanted ex-football players, ex-athletes, and all that, because Vince, just being his mentally ill self, just going on one of his skits like, God damn it, I can't stand to have these indie guys slapping their fucking legs. I need to get people who are real athletes that are coachable. Well, and come find out some of these guys don't have a passion for the business. Yeah, blah, 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 I digress. But, anyway, I was going to say, it's like they wanted to have a company that was more, where they didn't have to tell everybody how to work all over again, where they can just go out, be themselves, not be as scripted, not be as micromanaged. And, I think that was what they really wanted is the facts like, hey, you don't have to go and change your name, come on TV and all that. We want a company to where it's like, hey, you can go ahead, come in as yourself and learn how to get over on yourself, kind of like how it was in the olden days, but with lots of flips and leg slaps. And head drops. Can't forget head drops.
Oh, yes, the head drops. All those flippity doos that we talked about last time, didn't we? Yeah, but
especially that Tiger driver that Kenny Omega gave Will Ospreay.
Oof.
Actually, or it was it was Ospreay giving it to Kenny Omega, where he just that was the Tiger driver '91, baby. Whew.
Okay, so now that we know the history of crossovers and like what the mentality of them was. This new WWE ID that Triple H is coming up with in order to tag some of the indie wrestlers to be potential stars in WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that considered a crossover, or are they
They're basically doing what AEW did, bottom line. Creating a gateway for independent wrestlers to actually come in and get noticed before, like, possibly getting signed or having a tryout at the Performance Center. Plain simple. Because you got to understand something. Under Triple H's regime, Vince never wrestled before he, got in the business and started running administration. Triple H did. And not only that, Triple H started on the indies. He was trained by Killer Kowalski and worked indies for like a year or a year and a half or so before he got signed to WCW for a year, and then went and worked for Vince after his year was up at WCW. So he knows what it's like to come up through those ranks for in the small buildings, the bingo halls, the Knights of Columbus's halls, the National Guard armories, smell of popcorn in the air, smell of if you really want to go back to Kowalski's days, cigarette smoke in the air, but I digress on that. But no, he knows what it's like, and he wants a gateway for some of these guys getting started, because Vince for a while was so anti-indie, it was ridiculous to have these guys who have talent, passion, and respect for the business to come in and, be able to get their name made, instead of having guys that were pro athletes before and then came into WWE who have like zero passion or low passion for the business, shitting them on social media for them trying to get to the platform these guys were brought right into. But I digress on that. So, basically, Triple H knows the struggles as a wrestler, and he's trying to make the wrestling business WWE-wise, more wrestler-friendly. And yes, I'm going to use that word wrestler, not sports entertainer.
Now, something that we have to consider with the indies, like, especially the indies after the territory days, I mean, you have a melting pot of talent in each area and whatnot. And each of these promotions, if there's multiple promotions in the area, take these wrestlers on and put them in different situations in order to differentiate themselves from the different things. So, I mean, it's like the crossover part is not necessarily as strict as it is in the TV sense, because it's like you have like you could you've worked face in one promotion and heel in another. You've worked one gimmick in one promotion while still doing the psychopath in the other. I mean,
and sometimes even on the same show.
Sometimes even on the same show. But especially with the indies and how they're, I mean, it's like you don't see a cross promotion often, but you'll sometimes see a promotion letting another promotion have their title match on their show in order to like a gesture of goodwill, or
give them a rub.
Give them the rub. And I mean, especially with like NWA and them lending their title to Well, lending their champion to other shows, like we had that wonderful match with Jason Strife and
Nick Aldis. Well, that was Nick Aldis doing his job like Harley Race and Terry Funk and Lou Thesz back in those days in territory days, going out to each individual promotion and going and defending that title and making their top guy look good for 45 minutes an hour, and either going over on that champion or, going to a 60-minute Broadway. I mean, that's just how it was in those days. And NWA is still very tradition heavy on that, except now instead of territories, it's indie promotions. And I think everything has to be improved by NWA as far as dates and all that goes. But yeah, it's basically the same thing, just different era, different, slightly different way of doing it now.
We've been talking a lot about crossovers.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at crossovers in the media that's not necessarily wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, it's hard to tell which ones were 100% WWE promoted and which ones were crossovers for the sake of just making more money for both ends, but
or wrestlers even going out and doing their own deal.
Right. Well, it's like, I mean, I've seen like the Hulkster doing commercials for Grey Poupon.
Yep, and Right Guard.
Right Guard.
Yep, yeah, it's like him painting that picture. Hogan went out and got that on his own. Actually, Tony Atlas told the story one time. It was 91. Vince was sitting watching the Super Bowl, and Vince actually tried to get the WWF advertised on a Super Bowl commercial and couldn't do it. And they're going watching because Vince even was, I think in the past had went against the Super Bowl and only drew like 50 people or something like that.
Oops.
But, and the look on his face when he saw Hogan on that Right Guard commercial, oh my God, he was mad. It's like, that son of a bitch actually went out and got a Super Bowl commercial. I couldn't get anything, and he didn't even tell me. That son of a bitch. Yeah, there's nothing more hilarious than Vince saying, son of a bitch. But one that was WWE sponsored was when Hogan and a lot of the guys like British Bulldogs and all that were on the A-Team with Mr. T. Yeah, that one was, I think Vince and the producers of the A-Team actually put that one together when they did that. Also, I think there was the Love Boat, which, you gotta be, like at least a boomer remember that show. So I still hear my mom occasionally talk about that show, The Love Boat. Let's see what else. I mean, we've obviously seen the movies like that weren't WWE sponsored, like Predator, like Rocky 3 when Hogan and Ventura went out and got those on their own. But
was Suburban Commando WWE promoted?
Nope, but one that was during that era was No Holds Barred. When they had Hogan play Rip, whoever his name was. And then they had the No Holds Barred the movie. Then they had No Holds Barred the match when they brought in Zeus to work with Hogan. And they had the couple matches with like Zeus and Savage against Hogan and Beefcake at SummerSlam, which is, I think, the only 2 times that Bruce Beefcake's ever main evented a WWF pay-per-view. But I digress on that one. But that one was Vince trying his hands at the movie industry and, doing No Holds Barred. And, they brought Stan Hansen in to act on that one. They brought... trying to think of who else they brought in for that one. I think they might have brought in what was his name? Dr. Death, Steve Williams. I think he might have done that movie as well. So I know Stan Hansen was in that one for sure. It's been so damn long since I've seen that movie, but I actually used to own it. And trying to think of what else. Another one that was WWE sponsored, which actually much later on was the ones they did with Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yep, and by golly, I tell you what, I was so mad when I watched that Flintstones one. You want to know how mad I am?
How mad are you?
I'm pissed off and mad about it. They would not use the word wrestling in that. We are going to put on a sports entertainment attraction, is what they called it. Yeah, Fred Flintstone, you and your rambling, gambling addiction and all that. But I was so mad when they refused to even use the word wrestling in there. But by God, like the Scooby-Doo one was okay because right in the same time, Scooby-Doo also did one with Kiss too, which I thought was really cool. So, speaking of
Kiss Demon.
Yep, gotta go back to WCW. Kiss was the hottest band when they had their return in the late 90s in as far as like gate attractions when they had the reunion tour. Then they went, let's go ahead and do another album. Anybody who knows me knows that I love Kiss. They're probably my favorite band of all time, except for maybe Black Label Society now, but I digress on that. But you know what the whole deal was going to be with the whole Kiss and WCW thing? But this is only rumor, but this is supposedly what it was going to be. They were going to slowly unveil 4 Kiss wrestlers on there, and they started with Gene Simmons' demon persona. They were going to have a spaceman, they were going to have a Catman, and a Star Child, and make them all a faction. And it was going to be a marketing deal with Kiss to have, because Gene Simmons will put his ticket in the hat for anything to market and merchandise Kiss. Christ, I even have avatars now for live shows, but whew. That was, it could have worked. It would have been cool. It would have been an attraction on there, especially because WCW was going to Vegas a lot too. So, but at the same time, and it could have been a way for them to kind of work with Vince or work on competing against Vince in the Northeast, because Kiss is from being New York and all that. That might draw some of their crowd. I could see where they were thinking with it, but it's like, man, it's like, that idea was out there. But then again, sometimes crossovers with like movies coming into wrestling actually sometimes works for merchandising too. Kind of like when they brought the Terminator in and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they cross-promoted WrestleMania with Terminator 5, I think it was, Terminator Genesis.
When you do it in video games, though, I mean, it works a lot better because there's more of a fantasy aspect to it that makes it more believable.
Well, I tell you this, that was absolutely brilliant and fun. I always wanted to wrestle as the Terminator in a WWE game, and if I had to do it in the past, I had to go and create it and be able to max his stats out and, come up with a moveset that worked for him, and, possibly put on Undertaker's biker entrance on there, but when they're actually able to not only give you one version but 2 versions of the Terminator on a video game to wrestle as, I ate it up like a fat kid eating chocolate. That was, and plus they also cross-promoted that movie with WrestleMania with Triple H coming dressed as the Terminator when he wrestled Sting and jobbed his ass out too, but I digress on that one. But that one was, I thought that was the best crossover from something else coming into wrestling to promote it. Which, by the way, honey, I gotta ask you, which one are you picking, T1 or T2 to wrestle as?
Ooh. I think T2 because that's the one I remember the most from my childhood.
Same here. I gotta go Arnold T2 on WWE 2K16, but yeah, I absolutely loved that crossover, man. So, which, by the way, I gotta get a copy of that game for the PS4 in the future.
Now, a topic that I wanted to go into, especially with crossovers going wrong, is like the infamous Playboy curse.
Oh boy, me and my left hand has a lot of fun and not so fond memories of that.
Well, because there was a time where the Playboy curse is basically anytime a woman from WWE would pose for Playboy and become the centerfold, they would lose their career shortly afterwards.
Yep. Well, except for Tori Wilson. She did it twice and hung around there for about another 3 years. after the second time she did it, because the first time she did it solo, and then the second time she did it with Sable, which Sable, it was her second time doing it because she did it in 99. So I think she was kind of the first one that actually went and did that, too. So, and shoot, because it's like, yeah, there's a whole list on there. I'm trying to think.
Like China.
China was the next one after Sable. Then I think Tori was the next one. Then Tori and Sable together, and
didn't Lita do it?
No.
Okay.
Christy Hemme.
Christy Hemme
was next. Then Candice Michelle, I remember hers being promoted all over. Then Ashley Massaro, and I think the last one to do it was Maria. And then WWE started the PG era with that after Benoit. Because Maria was the last one to do it right as they were transitioning to PG.
You think they'll ever do that again?
Nope, because of OnlyFans.
OnlyFans.
Yep, I mean, because they're going and doing it on their own now. So, I mean, and even Rob Van Dam and Katie Forbes has started Only Wrestlers now, which, you know, I don't know who all would be involved in there besides, because I saw Nadia Sapphire from the UK promoting hers on there, but I don't know of anybody else that I know of doing that right now, but I digress on that, so, well, except unless I want to start one, so.
Well, I mean,
it's not just for the girls, so.
I understand that.
Actually, there was a wrestler around here that did have an OnlyFans at one point on his link tree because he was posting on his Instagram stories, but I won't name names, so.
All right. Well, okay, we've already gone to the 45-minute mark. Do you want to go for an hour, or do you want to take it home?
Well, I was going to say, what else do we have on the agenda to talk to as far as crossovers go?
We hit everything on our list.
Well, do you have any plugs that you want to go with, since this is going to be our last episode here over at the Reaver Studio?
I have a hiccup. Oh, my turn.
Yep.
Oh, fine. Now I can't complain about him burping anymore.
It's like, hey, if you want to see an old man growing and belching, sitting naked in a room, hey, come to my house, and that's just my wife.
Ah.
I stole that one from Bobby the Brain Heenan.
The only one other crossovers that crossovers done wrong in wrestling, RoboCop.
Oh Lord, I still have PTSD from that shit. RoboCop was over at that time here in the country, because that first movie was really, really good, and then the rest of the series was, the rest of the series. But him coming and saving Sting, getting locked in a cage that Jim Cornette was locked in and couldn't touch because they had to bend the bars. Yeah, that stunk. That stunk. Sting even is on record.
Your opinion on ICP and their venue. Oh,
Juggalo Championship Wrestling.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what. I know a couple people that have worked for them and gone to their was it Juggalomania? Something like that?
Juggalomania.
Yeah, Juggalomania. Man, it's like, I don't hate the clowns, but, I'm not really part of the ICP community, but I know people who are. It's like, it is what it is. I mean, it is its own subculture of wrestling. I know it's like they're passionate wrestling fans. They love the business and they want to have fun doing it. And plus, they are giving guys work for it. But man, especially because I've only seen like 2 matches from Juggalo Championship Wrestling, and one of them was Scott Steiner and Bader working with 2 local guys and just butchering them. Oh my, that match is somewhere on YouTube, and the commentary on that match was fucking hilarious with Violent J and who's the other one? It's Violent J and
I forget the other one.
Shaggy 2 Dope.
Yeah.
They're doing commentary just like, he dropped them on his fucking head. Like, they're gonna fuck these young boys up before their careers even get started. It's like, oh God. But I know Scott Hall worked a match or two for them too before, he really, like after he quit his second TNA run over there and he did a show for them. It was actually a pretty good match, but I gotta say, it's like, hey, it's good for the business, especially if people are going enjoying themselves, even if they're seeing a bunch of naked people sliding down a mudslide. But I digress on that one.
Alrighty, do you want to take it home?
I got one more crossover.
You got one more crossover? Okay.
One more crossover. All right. What about a group of wrestlers getting together in a movie and actually assisting the main character to go and do it, but they're not wrestlers? Ever see MacGruber?
Oh, I have not. I've been wanting to.
Basically, I can't remember who did the character on Saturday Night Live, but there was a character that was a pun off of Richard Dean Anderson's portrayal of MacGyver called MacGruber, and they actually were able to get like 6 or 7 of the WWE guys involved in this project and have them be, soldiers or like special agents, whatever the fuck you call MacGruber, to assist him in the movie defeat the bad guys. I haven't seen it. I've only seen bits and clips of it, but yeah, it's like getting a whole group, kind of like the A-Team, but on silver screen. That was in like 2009 or 2010 or somewhere in there. Because, I hope everybody made a shit ton of money because I, don't think that drew very well at the box office. So,
Aww.
But then again, hey, it wouldn't be the first time that WWE actually went into film, with having one of their top guys doing film, like with WWE Films and the like the Marine, the Condemned, See No Evil.
See No Evil, I remember that one.
Kane and Vince wanting him to have a 3-foot schlong. So, for what?
For what?
Well, I was going to say that would explain why Kane would have been so popular with the ladies. Even with a burnt face.
And I've strung this out for as long as I can.
I can go ahead and hold the bear hug a little bit longer.
Hold the bear hug a little bit longer.
Yep, it's like, okay, I'll catch my breath. Okay, wait a second. No, I'm blowing up again. Fuck. Okay. Oh, somebody's throwing a bottle of water at me. Okay, thank you. What? Oh, somebody's throwing a bottle of beer at me. What? It's empty? Boo, you son of a bitch. Don't throw bottles of water at me while I'm in the ring. Throw bottles of beer and make sure they have something in them. I need something to refresh that I can actually feel in my veins, as well as use as a weapon later. But, well, do you have anything else that you would like to plug? Because I actually have a couple things.
Plug away.
Okay. Plug insert into the wall. For anybody that's going to be listening to this podcast, I think it might be worth checking out El Ranchito this Sunday, December the 8th at Next Level Wrestling for, let me go ahead and get the name of that show back up too, because I just shared it on my Facebook. I just want to make sure that I plug properly because, this is very raw bones of the show, down to earth as we can. I don't try and make everything perfect. I like to try and make things a little bit more like Rogan. Oh, that Facebook actually updated and got new graphics. What do you think of it?
Nice.
Yeah, it's a little easier on the eyes. But the next NLW show...
You just passed it.
Yep. No, it's called Whoville. So I was going to say December the 8th, Sunday, doors open at 2 p.m. Kids 12 and under are free over at El Ranchito in South Sioux City, Nebraska. And also, this also came in here in the last couple days. As of right now, on December the 19th, over at the Waiting Room Lounge in Omaha, Nebraska, I think it might be worth checking out PWP Live because I think I might drop in there and say hello to a couple old friends and be up some old Emmas, depending on how I'm feeling that day. And I'll probably be kind of pissed off and mad about it.
You and that pissed off and mad about it.
But it's such a good song by Texas Hippie Coalition. It's like I got to see if I can go ahead and put something together with that, because I not to get off topic here, but got some ideas for Sioux City, because I've been a little bit of a sour mood this last couple months, and I really feel like going and throwing a couple potatoes at somebody.
Oh boy, he's coming back. No! Hey, I need to close up here if we're gonna do that.
Yep.
All
and
right.
open up.
And open up. Alrighty, it's finally time to go home.
Okay, I'm ready to go home.
This
To my pet cell.
This is Sarah Whitaker.
And Salty Dalty.
Here to thank everyone for listening in. We will pick up this podcast once we secure a recording venue and come up with other topics and misadventures to share with you.
As well as guests.
You can find us at your favorite podcast platform or at YouTube at LadyMorg0240.
And you can also find me on all my social media handles at SaltyDalty0240. And if there's anything else coming up show-wise, be sure to follow me. I will retweet that.
Alrighty, stay classy, and we hope to see you again soon.
Booyakasha!
Booyakasha!
'Cause I don't